This is the greatest honor of my professional career. I'm delighted and privileged to be here. In this regard, I must thank Rainer Horn, former president of IUSS, who nominated me, Global Soil Partnership, of course, FAO, Madam Samido, Ronald Vargas, Dr. Eduardo Mansour, of course, the Russian Federation, and the World Soil Science community that really made me very proud of being a soil scientist. And as Eduardo mentioned, it's a really privilege to be friend with colleagues here at FAO. Somebody was asking me how many times I've been here. The first visit I had to FAO was 1976. So it has been a great privilege and an honor to be part of this, and especially receiving the Glinka World Soil Prize. Professor Glinka was also president of the International Soil Science Society, which now, of course, is the International Union of Soil Science. I also want to thank many other colleagues who I had the great privilege to work with. And Ronaldo asked me to indicate some of those things. I had 54 postdocs. I had 174 visiting scholars from around the world. I had 15 research scientists and 112 graduate students. So I had 354 postgraduate people who I had the honor to work with. And in addition, of course, I teach 2 classes. Now, these colleagues did a marvelous job. Therefore, we have written 22 books, 72 edited books, 919 journal articles, 535 book chapters, and 505 invited keynote presentations since 1980. So those colleagues have done really a remarkable job. The citation index that I have is 88,600 because the hard work of all these colleagues were done. I have had the privilege to preside International Union of Soil Science. I'm still, until 31st of December, president of IUSS. I was president of Soil Science Society of America in 2007, president of International Soil Tillage Research Organization, and the World Association of Soil and Water Conservation. So I must say that I'm perhaps the luckiest person having the privilege to serve so many societies. Therefore, I had the great fortune of working with IPCC, UNCCD, especially now with Science Policy Interface, Global Soil Week. We started together under the leadership of Dr. Klaus Toffer. UNU Flores, the campus based on the Nexus approach in Potsdam, in Dresden. I had the honor to be its chair of the board since its inception. Soil Resolution 440, unanimously approved by US Senate in 2008, was drafted by me when I was president of the Soil Science Society of America. I worked as a member of FACHIE, Global Soil Partnership, under Eduardo Pervez Kohab Khan. I prepared the draft for the GSP at that time, 4 per 1,000 and AAA. Many organizations, a great privilege, great honor, something that's really thankful to God for this kind of thing. I have worked on several issues, and Ronaldo suggested that I highlight some of them, starting work on black soils, vertisols of Australia in 1968, heat of wetting, phenomena controlling infiltration. In Africa, I worked on deforestation in 70s and 80s, and its impact on climate and water balance and soil erosion. High soil temperatures, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, soil temperature getting to 50s, maybe more, kinetic energy of rainfall causing serious erosion problem and desertification, of course soil organic carbon, and the societal value of soil carbon. What are the damages done to society when that happens? I was pleased to see the video of conservation agriculture seeding manually I guess that is very appropriate. Soils are not damaged. Eco-intensification of agro-ecosystem. The nexus concept, the so-called holistic approach. Soils of the tropics, especially representing 500 to 600 million small landholders. Urban agriculture, especially focusing on soil-less farming. By 2050, almost 75 to 80% of the food consumed will be in the cities. Therefore, we should pay attention to that part, how to recycle nutrient. And of course, I think soil farming rather than crop farming or rather than livestock farming. Soil is the basis of that. And therefore, the soil and the environment has been a focus of my work for last 50 years exactly, graduated in 68. Ronald also asked me to talk about soil pollution. Already the Deputy Director General and His Excellency from the Russian Federation has indicated already the pollution problem. There are two sources, point source and diffuse source, and there are several origins, geogenic from the parent materials and the anthropogenic. The anthropogenic source includes industrialization, mining, urbanization, waste disposal, irrigation, agricultural chemicals, amendments, of course military activities and many others. So the problem is quite serious, and there are at least two broad categories of pollutants: inorganic, several types, such as heavy metals, cadmium, lead, copper, zinc, arsenic, and non-metal. Many of the non-metal, ammonium sulfide, cyanides, and of course there are organic pollutants, alkenes, alphates, and again several types of benzene, ethyl benzene, xylene, toluene, many organic compounds which eventually enter the environment. I think the question which we are talking about, let be soil solution to pollution, I think soil life in soil has something important to do with it. Many of you know the Gaia Hypothesis from Jim Lovelock. The hypothesis is that the life always creates an environment which are favorable to life. So if we encourage soil life, whether it's macrofauna, whether it's microfauna, biota, earthworms, termites, centipedes, millipedes, microbes, they would all be essential to restoring soil. Essentially, all life depends on the soil. There can be no life without soil and no soil without life. They indeed have evolved together. Now, in terms of the restoration of polluted soil, the weight of live organism in a good soil should be about 5 metric ton per hectare. Most polluted soil, degraded soil, especially in developing countries, this value is less than 10th of this amount, or even less than 100th of this amount. Therefore, restoration of biotic activity is very important. And the techniques of reclaiming polluted soils, there are physical techniques, some of these listed here, there are chemical techniques, and of course there are biological techniques. And I'll focus on biological one more: land farming, biopiling, composting, bioreactor, bioleaching, phytostabilization, phytoextraction, phytodegradation of the pollutants, which lead to restoration of soil functions, soil quality, soil health, which have strong impact on soil health and of course the environmental health. So the principles of reclaiming polluted soil, the theme of this World Soil Day today, very well thought about by FAO and colleagues. Stabilize potentially toxic elements. Washing, leaching of potentially toxic elements by natural surfactants such as humic acids. Sequestration of potentially toxic elements through glomalin, which is produced by mycorrhizal fungi. And of course phytoremediation, which is the most cost-effective process, along with bioaugmentation. I already mentioned the Gaia Hypothesis by Jim Lovelock. So bioaugmentation, an important part is the soil biodiversity. Technology, environmental biotechnology is one option. Microbes, both mycorrhizal and non-mycorrhizal fungi, crops, both agricultural and horticultural, many wild plants. At least we understand there are 400 wild plants which really lead to bioaugmentation. Several of these belong to 10 different plant families. I won't pronounce the name of all of them, but there is one which are very particularly important, Brassicaceae, that the mustard. I'll show you a couple of examples of those flowers. But most of these 400 genera includes 11 and 87 species, 11 genera and 87, 400 different plant types. Of these, the two important Indian mustard, Brassica gentiana, which is really collect a lot of heavy metal in the roots, and they can be then harvested and disposed. Sunflower plants has also quite not only heavy metal but also radionuclides, cesium and strontium component considerably. In terms of soil amendments, as I mentioned, I like to focus on organic components. Chelates, something that can bind the heavy metal. Zeolite, a very naturally acting compound. Many synthetic compound, EDTA, DTPA, those who know chemistry understand these one very well. Acidifying agents, including fertilizers, humic substances, very important, which occur in compost and manure. The enzymes, there are several enzymes, here in the case of lacase, which secreted by certain organisms, can stabilize these pollutants and remove them from the environment. Therefore, simple techniques such as manuring, compost application, restoring soil organic matter content, increasing naturally occurring soil organic compounds in soil. Glomalin is one example of those. Humic acids in soil, which are natural surfactants, and these compounds stabilize potentially toxic elements. So the solutions are really the natural solutions. Improve, stabilize, enhance, restore soil organic matter content. This is a very cost-effective method and natural method, which also has many other benefits, including climate change mitigation, for which Global Soil Partnership had an excellent congress about a year ago, spring of 2017. There are many binding agents which are also based on soil organic matter content. So in a sense, restoring degraded, depleted soils by improving their organic matter content through agricultural residues such as straw, unmarketable or culled fruits and vegetables, post-harvest or post-processing wastes, clippings and residues from forestry and pruning operations, animal manure. Many of these things are really soil amendment which can lead to improvement, restoration, remediation of polluted soils. Earthworms, an ecological approach for remediation of polluted soil, a very important component because some of the compounds these soil biota excrete, they can lead to complexation, adsorption, and precipitation. Chemically, very important processes related to soil organic dynamics. So I was specifically mentioned, keep it short, no more than 15 minutes. I'm very conscious of that time. I like to mention soil-centric farming. And here I like to take a brief diversion to mention the late King of Thailand, His Majesty Bhumipal Atulya Tej. That's my way of pronouncing this Sanskrit name. Bhumi is soil, Pal is protector, Atulya means unique, Tej means force, unique protective force of soil science. He was a very unique force. It's very appropriate that we are celebrating this day, World Soil Day, on his birthday. And he had adopted the soil-centric approach. Therefore, rather than saying NPK, I suggest, as King Bhumipal Atulya Tej would have said, CNPK, carbon as a part of land fertility, rather than NPK, soil farming, rather than crop and animal farming, soil farming. The technical potential of carbon sequestration, again based on the paper that GSP had done here and published in Biogeochemistry, there is a potential about 2.5 gigaton of carbon sequestration per year potential if we can adopt things such as 4 per thousand, another initiative. Terrestrial biosphere, soil and vegetation both, by 2100 have potential together of about 157 parts per million of drawdown from the atmosphere. A very unique opportunity, provided the policy makers can implement the decision, hopefully in a meeting happening right now in Poland, for example. So, bringing to the policy, if the soil resources of the world and if the soil organic carbon stock of the world can be considered as a base of a pyramid, and we can quantify those resources through the Global Soil Partnership, collaboration with IUSS and many other organizations, it can create the essential ecosystem services such as food and nutritional security. 850 million people suffering from food insecurity, 2 billion people suffering from malnourishment. That can be advanced through this. Climate change adaptation and mitigation, water quality and renewability, biodiversity. These are all sustainable development goals of the Agenda 2030. If this pyramid, based on soil resources, has to be stabilized, the apex where all those 4 points meet, as the Egyptian engineers long time knew, that point have to be cemented together. And if it is not cemented together, the pyramid cannot achieve those goals we are talking about. That cementing together is the political willpower, translating science into action. This is where some of the government representatives, the investors, the federal department, the international union, the GSP, they can translate science into action such as 4 per thousand, such as Global Soil Partnership, such as advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's the part which is, I think, the essential part. How do we work together? So in terms of soil, which I mentioned how important it is to give it back its share of produce. Soil produces all that food, biomass, and we, out of desperateness, take everything away. Grain, straw, and root biomass. We don't leave anything back on the land, not giving the share of the land that it deserves. Therefore, a part of the biomass produced by soil must be returned to it. Taking away everything, shoot, root, grains, dung, and without returning any biomass, is a robbery of the soil and a banditry. Removing everything is a particularly self-inflicting banditry because it degrades soil's capacity to restore itself and generate ecosystem services which are essential to humanity and nature. Therefore, we must always think this land produces something, give it back its share. So that's one part, a message I'd like to leave. The second part is soil farming. Rather than focusing on anything, the basic of functionality of ecosystem services is soil. If asked what I would suggest to restore soil and improve the environment while ending global hunger and advancing sustainable development goals, the logical response would be to change the ways soils are taken for granted and abused to produce, transport, process, consume, and waste food. Waste. At least 30% of what we produce wasted. And misused to extract feed, fiber, fuel, bricks, and other commodities needed by the humanity. A prudent strategy would imply making soil and agriculture an integral part of the solution to adapting and mitigating climate change, and encouraging the policymakers to empower farmers and land managers for restoring degraded, polluted, and desertified soils, afforesting the denuded lands, reducing waste of food and natural resources, enhancing the eco-efficiency of inputs, and saving soil and water both for human well-being and nature conservancy. I thank you for the privilege and honor. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you very much.